If you're someone who puts your creative content out on the internet and you get reviews for it, and one day you happen to get a negative review and your first thought is, I'd like to get in touch with this person. I'd like to make contact with them. Don't do that. What's shaking, booktube? My name's Cam and welcome back to another video. You may remember a little while ago I did a video on Kathleen Hale, the infamous Goodreads stalker. You know, the lovely, wonderful woman that basically stalked someone who left her a review on Goodreads and harassed her at her place of work and is now having a book published where she pokes fun at that. Just makes it a real fun little quirky thing she did once. Well, on that video I actually had quite a few people asking if I could cover or perhaps make a video on a very similar incident, except something that was quite a lot worse. Worse than hashtag hell no? Yes. Hell yes. Today we're going to be taking a journey through an incident that happened quite a number of years ago, in which essentially an author wrote a trash book and got a review pointing out that it was trash, and naturally decided to hunt her down and physically assault her. It's a pretty wild ride, and although it doesn't have as many twists and turns as the Kathleen Hale story, it has a bit more action, I guess, if you want to call it. I don't think. I mean, this isn't going to sound like a Tom Cruise movie. It's actually pretty creepy. So today we take a trip back in time to the year 2014, to a time in which Richard Britton, age 28, physically assaulted Paige Rowland, age 18. Time travel is actually really easy, in case you didn't know. Wow, 2014, it feels so different. A time when memes still had the top and bottom text format, a time when the song Shake It Off followed you fucking everywhere, my god. 2014, a time when Ebola was a thing. You remember Ebola? Now before we get into the meat of the story today, I just want to take a really quick moment to do a self-promo or plug. Did you know there's actually a free booktube chat room? It's a Discord chat room. If you're not familiar with Discord, you can join the chat room without making an account. And basically it's a chat room for anyone who enjoys reading and writing. It's got quite a number of people in there that you can chat with. A whole number of different topics you can chat about. You can even plug some of your own stuff in there. It's a whole lot of fun. I'll leave a link in the description below. Now it's not my chat room. I mean, I created it and I am an admin in it. But it's not like a Wolfshot Publishing Discord, it's more so a booktube Discord. I created it with the sole intent of it just being a place that is owned by a community more so than just a person. So yeah, if you're feeling lonely, God knows most of us are, I'd recommend checking it out. There's some really cool people in there, some really active people. So the subject of today's video is a guy who looks like a mash between Hank and John Green. I should be clear, he's not a relative of the Greens that we know of. His name's Richard Britton, and at the time of the incident that we'll be discussing, he was 28 and the victim was 18. Before this incident occurred, Richard was actually most well known for winning a show called Countdown. He was a Countdown champion. This is a show I thought was fictional from an episode of the IT Crowd.
He's challenging you to a game of street countdown. You cannot accept. It's too dangerous.
I came here to drink milk and kick ass. And I've just finished my milk.
But basically, Richard Britton won this show. He is considered a Countdown champion. I also located a YouTube channel that I believe belongs to him because the picture looks exactly like him. And it's filled to the brim with classical music. Now, I don't mean to stereotype, I don't mean to make broad judgments, but I'm fairly certain that every single person on the planet who is obsessed with classical music is or has at some point been a serial killer. I'm just saying, that's all. This is just the type of music I would imagine you would be sharpening your knives to as you sit in a large leather armchair by the fireplace with some poor person gagged and tied on the floor in front of you, that's all. We're gonna come back to the YouTube channel thing a little bit later because there is some funny things I want to point out about that. So the main victim we're discussing today is Paige Rowland. Basically, she wrote a negative review about Richard Britton's book, The World Rose, but in order to understand the context of the book itself, The World Rose, we actually have to discuss a previous stalking incident that Richard was the perpetrator in. Yep, as it turns out, Richard stalked more than one person, so, you know, cool guy. Before Paige Rowland, there was Ella Duran, a barmaid. From what I understand, Richard and Ella were actually classmates together in the university, and Richard quickly became quite obsessed with her, and he happened to follow her around quite a lot and contact her through almost any means of social media that she had. The harassment got so bad that it's attributed to part of the reason that Ella actually moved from London to Glasgow. And naturally, like a sane person would do, Richard followed her from London to Glasgow.
Britain travelled almost 500 miles from...
Just like with Paige Rowland, Richard Britton actually used a combination of Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to find out where Ella Durant worked so that he could go there in person to try and speak to her. It got to the point where she actually had to file a form of restraining order against the guy. Not being able to see her in person anymore, he went to what I guess he felt was the next most romantic step to turning up at their workplace uninvited, which was to write a fantasy story in which the princess is based on her. The book is called The World Rose, and obviously I haven't read it, I don't intend on reading it, but luckily he has an intro up on his YouTube channel. I told you we would get back to that YouTube channel. On his channel, he reads out what I guess is the start of the story, and my god. I'm actually just going to play it for you here, because technically I'm reviewing it, so that's fair use. So, suck it, Richard.
Once upon a time, there was a great forest realm. High up on a hill, among the yew trees, stood a castle. In that castle lived a princess, and her name was Ella Tundra. Her hair was golden brown, and her eyes were blue like the ocean. Her smile could melt the hearts of knights, and her voice was delicate like a leaf in the wind. She was tall and elegant, slender yet well endowed. Tundra was in her name but not her nature, for she was neither cold nor bleak like tundra, but warm and vibrant like a meadow in summer. At 23 years of age, the princess was world-renowned. Word of her loveliness had spread around the globe to distant lands and far-reaching empires.
From listening to that short intro alone, I think we can all agree that the fictional Ella of the story would be the most teeth-grindingly cliched Mary Sue possible. That sounds like the type of writing used in sitcoms to make a joke about someone being bad at writing. I really don't like judging whole things off of a very short snippet, especially a snippet as small as that, but in this instance, I'm going to say, you're garbage. Now, although the last thing I would normally want to do is link you to this guy's YouTube channel, I am going to link you to the video, this intro video, because the comments are fucking hilarious. I mean, seriously, I'm not laughing at the situation as a whole because it's actually horrifying, obviously, but the comments on this video are just bellissimo. Your book is great, Richard. Please don't hit me. Richard is so English that his last name is Britton. Richard is so English, he bottles women. Wow, this book would really pair well with a glass of wine, or maybe even a whole bottle. Spank me with a wine bottle, Daddy Britton. That was 42 seconds of AIDS. Yikes. Okay, that's probably enough, for now at least. So Paige left him a review, and obviously the first thing you would want to know is what was the review, and funnily enough, it actually took quite a bit of digging for me to find it. I don't know if I was just looking in the wrong places, but I had to go through quite a number of sources to find it. I imagine the first and most obvious reason for that would be that the review was probably deleted quite a long time ago, and I guess at the time no one thought to screenshot it, but luckily someone did because I managed to find it, finally. Paige wrote, "Way too much telling, pretentious prose, and a main character that I already hate. Ella is the perfect princess, true to fairy tales, so we can at least give him a little credit despite how painfully annoying this is, coupled with a complete lack of real personality shining through. Not only is Ella physically perfect, she's faint-hearted too. She's a fair maiden. Never was a maiden so fair, nor so beauteous, nor so boobalicious. Oh please." As far as negative reviews go, that could have been a whole lot worse. I've gotten worse reviews than that. Not worse in the criticism itself, but worse in the pointed language used directed at me. Honestly, I think that's a pretty good review. I mean, it's the tiniest bit mean in a sassy way, I guess, but at the same time, there is a lot of constructive criticism in there. Obviously, I'm not saying that were it meaner, it would warrant what was to come, but that's a pretty decent review as far as I can see. So like he did with Ella Durant, Richard Britton actually tracked her down on Facebook. I believe he used Twitter and Instagram as well. Through those means, he managed to find out where she worked. He then went on to make the trip to the place that she worked, and while I wish that I could say that all he did was left a passive-aggressive book on the doorstep like our old girl Kathleen Hale, he didn't. He went inside, and I don't know what his intention was from the beginning. I think, obviously I don't know on a personal level, but I think his intention wasn't to attack her immediately, but I guess when he walked in and he saw her, he became so excited or enraged that he grabbed the closest thing to him, which happened to be a wine bottle. And if you're over the age of 18 and you're watching book videos on the internet, chances are you're more than familiar with what wine is and how fucking heavy the bottles are. My god. He picked up a wine bottle and he basically smacked her over the back of the head with it. Now, I've seen people get bottled by beer bottles, empty beer bottles at that, and they've needed stitches after that. Imagine a wine bottle, which is quite a lot heavier. Add to that the fact that it was full. You're talking about what is really as good as a brick. And you have a 28-year-old man hitting an 18-year-old girl with it in the back of the head while she's crouched down, loading shelves at her place of work. And all of that because of what I personally believe is quite a mild negative review on his self-published book. I mean, all jokes aside, that's terrifying. That's horrifying. And I think it's a real easy lesson that while you shouldn't have to, you absolutely should be protecting your identity online. That's just a fact. Sadly, that's just the way the world is. We can see the world as it should be, but that is very rarely how the world really is. People shouldn't have to lock their doors. Girls shouldn't have to dress modestly just to not be raped. But unfortunately, we live in a world where almost all of the people doing these things know that it's wrong and they know they shouldn't be doing it, but they choose to do it anyway, so telling them that it's wrong rarely does anything. Sad truth is you just have to take precautions to protect yourself and try to encourage the authorities to be harsher and deal out harsher penalties on people that do bullshit like this. And in this case, unfortunately, I feel the justice dished out was extremely underweight. Richard was sentenced just 30 months in prison. 30. That's barely 3 years for what I feel should have been attempted murder. I mean, he hit an 18-year-old girl over the back of the head while she wasn't looking with something that may as well have been a hammer or a brick. That girl has to deal with the permanent trauma and what I'm guessing is going to be the subsequent paranoia that people could be following her anywhere she is. She's going to feel that even in a place of work, she might not be safe. She could be killed at any time. I mean, I don't know if I would go so far as to say as her life is ruined, but she has something that she actively has to deal with now. And all of the people around her, all of the people that have been exposed to this story, perhaps even people watching this video now, might even think twice before they leave something like a negative review that they have every right to do just because of people like that. And people like Kathleen Hale as well. Now, this happened quite a while ago, so at this point Richard Britton's already out of jail. He's already working again. And he has since apologized for everything that happened. He's talked about finding God, all of that post-prison type stuff. And look, I'm all for rehabilitation. I believe people can change, sure. But I don't think he should ever be forgiven. I don't think what happened should ever be forgotten. I think he should have to live with and deal with this incident, just like Paige Rowland has to. I want to mention something as well that he wrote. It was a blog post titled My Prison Experience. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but there is a small part of this that I want to read out for you that just, it's something else. Reading this, either he's full of shit or he actually has some kind of mental deficiency. And no, that doesn't excuse what he did. He had the capacity to know that he shouldn't do that, and he did it anyway, so he deserves everything he got and deserved more, to be honest. Honestly, I think he should still be in prison to this day and for a couple of decades more, but he's described something that happened in prison that I just think is fucking wacky, and, well, I want to read it out for you. I was only subjected to violence on one occasion, however, when I was momentarily strangled by a psychotic inmate for no obvious reason. Wow, that must suck, dude. Getting attacked for no obvious reason? That's... damn, dude. This triggered some sort of psychosis in me, as I got a voice in my head telling me that I was the devil. You're not the devil, dude. At most, you're like some kind of... one of those like little disgusting creatures in hell that are like minions or whatever, like kind of like one of them. The voice later told me to stare directly at the sun, which I did for several days. After a while, you can feel the sun's energy inside you. I did this while listening to the Beach Boys. It was an unforgettable experience. What? But yeah, basically a guy who said that and damn near killed a teenage girl for giving him some constructive criticism is now back out and about in the normal world. While I do hope that he's getting whatever help he needs to be a contribution to society again, and while I hope that he does really see how fucked up what he did was, I do not hope the best for him. I don't. He doesn't deserve it. To the best of my knowledge, nothing similar to this has happened in more recent time, although this was only 2014. It was only 5 years ago, which I feel is pretty recent for something like this. While it hasn't happened immediately recently, I think it's an important lesson that people are fucking crazy. Protect your identity online, for God's sake. Especially if you're going to be providing any negative feedback or criticism or commentary on anything. Just protect your identity. You shouldn't have to, but you do have to. That's just the way it is. And that's it. That's the saga of Richard Britton and Paige Rowland. I hope Paige Rowland's doing well. In case you were wondering, she was okay. She wasn't killed. Luckily, she didn't suffer any brain damage, anything like that. She just had the back of her head looking like the inside of a dropped jam sandwich for a little while. And yeah, I hope she's recovering well, and I hope this doesn't leave her with any severe trauma, although it's inherently going to leave her with some degree of trauma or paranoia. Sadly, that's just the circumstances of an incident like this. If you know any similar stories like this that you would like me to cover in a video, I really love doing them and I would love to do more, so please let me know in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Catch ya.